Hey guys, good afternoon and welcome to our special broadcast. I'm Pavitra Parekh, and first off, let me begin by wishing all of our viewers and your families a very, very happy Ganesh Chaturthi from the entire team here at CNBC TV 18. That said, let's bring you the top headlines that we're tracking at this hour. The Lok Sabha begins the first proceedings in the new Parliament building after Prime Minister Modi, along with senior ministers and other MPs, enter the new premises. PM Modi says the old Parliament building will now be known as Samvidhan Sadan. Union Law Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal to table the Women's Reservation Bill in the Lok Sabha today. Prime Minister Modi introduces the bill in his address. This after the Cabinet approved the bill yesterday, granting 33% seats to women in Parliament. And Canada expels a top Indian diplomat, Ross Station Chief Pawan Kumar Rai, alleging Indian link in the killing of Khalistani leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar. India rejects these claims, calling them absurd and manipulated, sacks a senior Canadian diplomat as a retaliatory action. Reliance Jio gears up to launch Jio AirFiber wireless broadband service on the occasion of Ganesh Chaturthi. Mukesh Ambani, the chairman of Reliance Industries, first disclosed the device and its debut day last month during the company's annual general meeting. And Asian markets trade largely lower on worries around China's realty crisis. European markets also see a tepid open. This as investors have their eyes set on the start of the U.S. Federal Reserve's two-day monetary policy meeting. Oil prices rise for the fourth straight session as weak shale output in the United States triggers fears of a supply deficit. Prices have gained for 3 consecutive weeks and are now around 10-month highs for both Brent and NYMEX. Russia and China's top diplomats meet in Moscow. Russia says it is closely aligned with China's positions on the United States in resolving the Ukraine conflict. And protests erupt in Libya's Derna against authorities 1 week after the massive flood that killed thousands. The protesters are demanding accountability from officials, accusing them of negligence.
इस नए संसद भवन में मैं आप सभी माननीय सांसदों का भी हृदय से स्वागत करता हूं।
All right, that is the word coming in from Prime Minister Modi. The Lok Sabha began its first proceedings in the new Parliament building after Prime Minister Modi, along with senior ministers and other MPs, officially entered the building. Ahead of the day's proceedings in the new building, the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha MPs all gathered at the Central Hall for a function to mark the historic occasion. Now, Prime Minister Modi, in his address in the new Parliament building, introduced the very awaited Women's Reservation Bill that was cleared by the Cabinet yesterday. He also elaborated that at a time when women are progressing rapidly in every sector, it is imperative that they are able to contribute to the maximum possible extent and play a pivotal role in policy making as well. Now, Law Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal will be tabling the bill in the Lok Sabha, and the bill proposes to provide for 1/3 reservation to women in the Lok Sabha as well as the state assemblies. All right, so that is some important piece that we wanted to bring you. That bill will be tabled very soon. But let's take a look at the rest of the Asian markets that are trading. It is a holiday for us, but of course the rest of the Asian markets are trading and not trading too well actually. So most of the Asian markets are seeing some red right now. What's perhaps doing the worst right now is the Nikkei market. It is down 0.9%, and this one has been seeing cuts all through last week as well. So for now, it's a 290-point cut that you're seeing on the Japanese index. The Kospi around 0.6% lower. Shanghai seeing just a little bit of red. But across the board, you are seeing a little bit of selling pressure across Asia. In Australia as well, the central bank warned of further policy tightening, so that is also weighing a little bit just on sentiment. And, like you can see, the rest of the Asian markets are also trading with some cuts. The others that I haven't mentioned, the likes of Straits, Taiwan, also around 0.25% lower right now. If you look at the European markets, they've also actually got quite a tepid opening. Perhaps, a little bit of nervousness ahead of the U.S. Federal Reserve's two-day monetary policy meeting which kickstarts today. So that's what's happening in Asia. The other big issue, especially for Indian markets, has been this big rise that we've seen in oil prices, right? So we've seen a fourth straight session where we've seen higher oil prices, this on the back of weak shale output in the United States. The data, along with extended production cuts from Russia and Saudi Arabia, have also spurred market concerns of a supply deficit. So prices have gained for 3 consecutive weeks and are now around 10-month highs for both Brent as well as for NYMEX. So currently around $95 a barrel on the Brent prices. That could be a key concern for the Indian markets. With that, let's move on and also talk about Reliance Industries, because like we were pointing out to you, Reliance Jio is all set to introduce its fixed wireless broadband service, the Jio AirFiber. Now, this service is expected to be priced at roughly 6,000 rupees and will include broadband connection as well as a portable gadget. Mukesh Ambani, chairman of Reliance Industries, first disclosed the device as well as the debut date last month during the company's annual general meeting. So this is really going to be very important to watch today. The Jio AirFiber launched, and like I was mentioning, around 6,000 rupees is what the pricing is expected to be. But with that, let's move on and also bring you another important story that we're tracking. Even as the advanced tax collections remain quite healthy, a lot of questions are being asked about the way the government is reporting its finances. So the Comptroller and Auditor General of India has red flagged patchy documentation as well as some mismatch in information about government holding in public sector companies. The government's top auditor went on to ask why some critical information is being buried as footnotes. So Sapna is here with more details on this. Sapna, take us through, all of these concerns that have been spoken about.
Well, the observations by the top auditor, and of course they only relate to the FY22 finance accounts of the central government, but the observations are nothing short of scathing. And let's talk about 4 to 5 instances which the CAG has kind of red flagged and highlighted. Number one, in terms of government guarantees being given. So if you look at the data, the concerned CPSEs which have received the government guarantees and the government departments which have given it, there is a huge mismatch in the numbers. For instance, a query raised to the Department of Financial Services, how many guarantees have you given, or a total number of CPSEs covered? They said 261. But the concerned CPSEs annual reports were seen by the CAG, and it came out that 61 CPSEs are covered. So that's one example. Second, again, in terms of the amount of guarantees being given, say like by specialized funds like the NCGTC, there are at least 9 trust funds covered under this umbrella, and the amount is around 3.80 lakh crore. This also encompasses your ECLGS, which just expired last March, and that was one of the major flagship schemes during the COVID period for MSMEs. So there again, that's a massive amount that you're talking about, 3.80 lakh odd crore, but and 100% owned by the government. NCGTC is 100% owned by the government, but in the central account finances, this guarantee is not mentioned. There is no mention in the finance accounts of the central government. So CAG said that should be done. Third, and a bit hilarious, in terms of the equity holdings of the government and the number of shares that the president holds in many of the top PSUs. For example, you have BEL, you have GAIL, you have HUDCO, you have GIC, a whole host of companies. So there is a mismatch in the number of shares that the GUI has spoken about, and the number of shares, if you collate it or try to compare it with the annual reports of the concerned CPSEs, and there are marked differences. We are not just talking about a difference of say 50 lakh odd shares or 1 crore shares. Similarly, in terms of percentages, in many companies, for example Tata Telecommunication, it still shows as part of the central government accounts the GUI holds 26 odd %. Obviously that is not true. That stake had been disinvested. Now going on to more serious issues, like for example in reserve funds, a lot of the money comes through the cesses and the other charges and levies of the central government. You have the health cess, you have the education cess clubbed into one, and you have other cesses also. So, however, that the money is being collected, but the entire amount has not got transferred to the fund. For example, Universal Access Levy was one of them, around 10,000 odd crores. More than that was collected in FY22. What was transferred was around 8,300 odd crores. There was a shortfall there, and that shortfall still remains. That's one. Second, Param Madhyamik and Uchchatar Shiksha Kosh. You know, these approvals had come through the cabinet in 2017 and March 2021 respectively. And we are talking about huge sums of money. 45,000 crores was to be transferred in these funds. That didn't happen, but the money came through GBS, the gross budgetary support. But the funds have yet to be operationalized. That's the moot point. Now, MOF says they'll do it. They must have done it last financial year. We really don't know what has actually happened. Last but not the least, very important, 258 footnotes containing some very critical information. For example, small savings collections. You're talking of numbers like 6 lakh odd crore. So all of that is being packed into footnotes, and here the CAG has said that please change this to notes to accounts, make a separate addendum, make a separate addition to your overall finance accounts, and please do that. This is not on. It's quite scathing. The report is quite scathing.
All right, Sapna, very interesting. Thanks a lot for getting us all of the details on this important story. The CAG there raising concerns on how the government has been reporting some of its finances. But moving on now, let's also bring you some very interesting opinion. Bajaj Auto MD Rajiv Bajaj has hinted at the launch of what would be the world's first CNG motorcycle. So speaking exclusively to Parikshit, Bajaj said that the company's CNG bike launch could be a disruptor in the 100cc segment where the company has lagged. That's not all. Rajiv Bajaj has also said that 6 significantly upgraded Pulsars, which is the company's flagship product, as we know, would be launched in this fiscal year as well. Now, he also announced the launch of what he called would be the biggest ever Pulsar. So, a lot of interesting announcements coming through from there in that interview. In fact, Rajiv Bajaj also said that the company would present a roadmap to its board in order to ramp up its electric vehicle capacity further. So, they're looking to move from around 40,000 units to around 1 lakh units per month. This is by the next fiscal. Listen into what he had to tell us.
For all the Pulsar fans out there, we have plans to launch the biggest Pulsar ever. So currently the biggest Pulsar is a 250cc. Between now and the end of the financial year, over the next 6 months, we would introduce 6 significant upgrades or new Pulsars, all aimed, quite frankly, at further enhancing our share in this mid segment from 30% to, as much as it can rise. We would certainly like to vie for the #1 spot in this position. Our current capacity is about 40,000 a month between the Chetak and Yulu. And I would like to believe that for the next financial year, that is FY25 budget, when we present this to the board in March, we should have a plan in place to take the capacity to somewhere well above 40 and towards 100,000 a month. Why aren't there any CNG scooters and motorcycles? It would be great for consumers because it would cut their running costs by half. So it's like petrol becoming effectively 55 rupees a litre. There would be no concerns about safety, charging range, battery life, etc. Great for the manufacturer and great for the government because you make 18% GST. The 100cc has been very elusive, and who knows, maybe a CNG Bajaj motorcycle that halves people's running costs would be the answer with a little help from the government.
All right, that is what we could see from the Bajaj stable very soon, also telling us that they're going to push hard when it comes to the electric parts of the business as well. But with that, let's move on and bring you a big diplomatic development. In a major blow to India-Canada ties, the Canadian government has expelled a top Indian diplomat, Raw Station Chief Pawan Kumar Rai. This after the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that the government has credible allegations against the Indian government. Addressing the parliament, he claimed that India may have links to the assassination of Khalistani separatist leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar. PM Trudeau said, and I quote, "Killing of a Canadian citizen on the country's soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty." End of quote. Now, just hours after PM Trudeau's statement, the Indian government has rejected the allegations. They've launched a strong protest as well, calling Canada's claims absurd and motivated. In fact, India has also expelled a senior Canadian diplomat as a retaliatory measure. Parikshit is here now with the details. Parikshit, take us through what really transpired, because this is quite a blow to relations between the two countries.
Well, we are given to understand that things had been brewing, had been worsening between India and Canada for some time now. Since June, since the murder of the Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Khalistani activist who was also involved in doing some sort of informal referendum for having an independent Sikh state in the Indian subcontinent, there were allegations that India had made about him in the past as well. He was declared a terrorist in 2020. He was on the NIA most wanted list as well. All this information had been shared with the Canadian government. Now, Canada has gone on record to accuse India of direct involvement in the killing of this Khalistani activist in June. They have also said that an Indian diplomat was involved in some way, and this Indian diplomat has now been expelled. In fact, they also went on to name the RAW station chief in their press conference. And this is really unprecedented because you don't do this between friendly nations. Now, India has also hit back, expelling a senior diplomat from the Canadian embassy, and he also is the intelligence head of the Canadian government based in New Delhi, and he will have to leave India within the next 5 days. So a strong protest has been lodged. India has said that these secessionist activities, anti-India activities have been taking place in Canada for quite a long time, and Canada must bring all those responsible for inciting violence against India, violence against Indian diplomats, they must be brought to book immediately. There was also a tense conversation between Prime Minister Trudeau and Prime Minister Narendra Modi when the two leaders met on the 9th and 10th of September during the G20 in Delhi. And India conveyed very strong concerns on Khalistani activities that have been taking place over the last few months. And we said that we need to normalize the relationship and Canada must act against these anti-India elements. But clearly things have not gone down very well. Canada also taking the G7 into account. Justin Trudeau has gone on to inform the likes of President Biden, Prime Minister Sunak and President Macron of this move as well.
All right, Pariksha, thanks a lot for getting us all of the details on what has really transpired and the latest on the India-Canada relations. But with that, we do need to get into a short break. On the other side, we're going to bring you all of the details on the current protests which have erupted in Libya's Derna against authorities 1 week after the massive flood that killed thousands. The protesters are demanding accountability from the officials, accusing them of negligence. We're going to bring you all of the details on this very important story when we come back. Welcome back to the special broadcast. Now, like we were pointing out, there's the special session of the Parliament which is on, and the government has introduced the Women's Reservation Bill in the new Parliament. The proposed legislation was tabled by Law Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal, and my colleague Shivani is here with all of the details on this. Shivani, highly awaited and anticipated bill. Tell us more about this.
Well, yes, in a historic move, the Indian government has introduced the Women's Reservation Bill in the Parliament today, and the bill was cleared by the Union Cabinet on Monday, in fact. The legislation will reserve 1/3 of all seats for women in the Lok Sabha as well as the state legislative assemblies across India. This means that the bill seeks to reserve 33% of seats in the Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies for women. According to the bill, 1/3 of the total number of seats reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities will now be reserved from women of these groups. The bill clearly states that the reservation of these seats for women shall cease to exist 15 years after the commencement of the Amendment Act. Remember, this is not the first time that the bill has been tabled in the Parliament. While the bill was passed in the Rajya Sabha in 2010, it was not tabled in the lower house of the Parliament until today.
Right, Shivani, thanks a lot for getting us all of the details that is on the Women's Reservation Bill. With that, let's move on and bring you some very important international updates as well. Russia has said that it is closely aligned with China's positions on the United States and resolving the Ukraine conflict. This after talks between top diplomats of the two nations. Now, the statement from Russia's foreign ministry also said that China's Wang Yi briefed Russia's Sergei Lavrov about his talks with the U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. So that's important to track. But speaking of international developments, hundreds of people have also taken to the streets in the Libyan city of Derna. This was on Monday to protest against the authorities demanding accountability in the wake of the deadly floods last week. Now, this was the first major demonstration since the disaster that killed thousands and caused massive destruction across the city. Angry protesters also set fire to the house of the man who was Derna's mayor at the time of the flood, who has since been suspended. Meanwhile, the United Nations has flagged the risk of disease outbreak in the flood-hit city as well. So those are the visuals coming out of Derna. We're going to keep bringing you updates on this front as well, of course, as we do get any more information from there. But as we wind down on this very special broadcast, we would like to once again wish all of our viewers a very, very happy Ganesh Chaturthi. Our reporter Sandhya